Hey guys, welcome to another episode of She Knows Arsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at Jacino Tweets and at She Knows Arsenal, and on Instagram at Jacino Graham, and on TikTok at Just Jacino. All of those things. Make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel. We have loads to get through today in about an hour. I was not supposed to be on the top six show at 6 on the football terrace, but now I am. So we have an hour to get through the win against Bodo Glimt and then do a preview of the Liverpool game. So make sure you guys, are tuned in. You guys have a nice little drink. Let me know how you guys are feeling in the chat. All those things, get active in there. The show is nothing without your guys' comments. Like, I absolutely love how you guys are always in there challenging each other, challenging me. That's what this channel is about. So make sure you guys are in there letting me know exactly what you think, as long as you do it nicely. Okay. So don't have a bunch of time to chit chat. We're just going to jump straight in. Yeah. So Arsenal 3, Bodo Glimt 0. Kind of exactly what I expected from the match. I thought that we would dominate. I thought that we'd play a pretty rotated side. Arteta put out a squad that had 8 changes from the win in the North London derby, and it was pretty much exactly what I expected it to be. We were dominant, and it was just about getting the job done. And I think, in Arteta's press conference afterwards, like, he did speak about, not necessarily being super happy about the connection between the players. It was a quite an individualistic game if you think about the way that kind of our players were playing. When the starting 11 plays, it's a lot of little triangles and 1-2 touch passing, and it's a very team environment. And I'm not saying that the players that played yesterday were not connecting, but you could kind of tell that they hadn't played together before. And so those triangles and that continuity and that connection was not there. And so we lost the ball a little bit more than we probably should have, which I know would frustrate Arteta. But he ultimately, I think just wants excellence. He wants the team to elevate. And so there's nothing wrong with constructive criticism, even when the game was pretty much easy. I don't think that there was much that Bodo Glimt did. There was a lot of hype around Bodo Glimt that they were going to be a difficult team to play. I do think being at home helps us out, but ultimately, from what I see from that team yesterday, I think, yeah, we should have probably just cruised through that match. There were some standout performances, and then there were some that I thought left a lot to be desired and probably deserve a little bit more conversation amongst each other, which is exactly what we love to do as Arsenal fans. So I guess just to start off with, the players that stood out the most to me were Eddie Nketiah and Fabio Vieira. Fabio Vieira in particular, because we kind of know about Eddie. Eddie has been here for a while, and he really kind of stood out a lot last season at the tail end. And then, we know about Eddie. And then Fabio Vieira did his thing. And so, yeah, I think that those two players in particular are as close to the first team, as close to the starting 11, like beyond Tomiyasu and Tierney. They're like as close in those attacking positions, players that if you were to put them in, you'd probably trust them. I know that there is, a gap between Eddie Nketiah and Gabriel Jesus. That makes tons of sense. Um, but like if we had to play with Eddie Nketiah for a game or two, I'd feel pretty comfortable. And if we had to play Fabio Vieira, I wouldn't be scared at all. I think he was massive. He was so good. And you kind of saw it from the first moment that we saw him play against Manchester United, that he had qualities that we don't have in our team in through the midfield. Xhaka and Odegaard, they are shooting a lot more, and so you can give them credit for that. They're playing really well, but I think it's natural for Fabio Vieira to get into the box and make those third man runs and take those shots, and he wants to be effective when it comes to goals and assists, and that's exactly what he was in that game. I thought from minute 1, he looked like he wanted to make sure that he scored a goal. He had a couple of shots. He had one that just went right past the post. He had one that hit the crossbar, and he was neat and tidy on the ball. A little bit slow in transition in terms of, he wasn't somebody that I thought was hustling to get back the way that he probably should have. But beyond that, you could see really where his vibe is, and that's in and around the box making things happen. And he eventually got his goal off of a brilliant individual effort from Gabriel Jesus off of a throw-in, I think it was. He had no right to be able to dribble away from that Bodo Glimt defender, and he pretty much did all the work, but Fabio Vieira was there to finish it off. And to finish off the game for Fabio Vieira to have, a goal and an assist. His assist for Rob Holding's goal was really good as well. You can see him really pushing for, minutes in the Premier League. And I think with the amount of games that are coming in the next, 30 days or so, 28 days or so, we're going to see it. We're going to see him play more games. And I would feel totally comfortable with him starting games for Arsenal in the Premier League. And yeah, I mean, we spent 30 million on him, so, he's a talented player and we know. But yeah, I thought he really stood out, and Eddie stood out as well. Like, obviously he got his goal too, but man, Fabio Vieira just showed a level of quality that makes me feel okay about not bringing in um Lucas Paquetá. Like, that was a player that I was like, we should probably have been bringing in him or Tielemans. I feel a lot more comfortable not having gotten those players because of the player that we have in Fabio Vieira, which I think his ceiling is probably higher than those players. You guys can let me know what you think. Lynn Simpson says Vieira was the man of the match for a few more games, and you will see the improvement and the speed will come, and he can take a corner. He can take a corner. 100%. Like, he just has really good delivery, and he's just a quality technical player. And I get what you're saying about, like, you will see his improvement and stuff. Like, he's just started playing in England with Arsenal. Needs to get to know his teammates. But I remember watching a game, and I've spoken about it many times on this channel, where after we bought him, I wanted to see more of him, but in a full game setting. And I watched him play against Lyon, which was funny because we were linked with Lucas Paquetá, and then we had already bought Fabio Vieira, and those two were playing against each other in a very important game for Porto. And I thought that Fabio Vieira ran that game. As the game went on, he grew into it, but at the time, he was 21 years old, and you wouldn't know it because he was coming deep. He was going into the half spaces. He was beating the man. He was whipping in crosses. He was putting in balls in between the lines. He was existing in between the lines, making third man runs. And I just thought, yeah, we just have to give him some time. And that makes me feel a lot more comfortable about, because we hadn't seen him play. Like, we hadn't really seen him play. So I think at the end of the transfer window, there was a sense of like, oh, did we do the right thing? Have we gotten enough players? I still think we're a player short, especially because El Neni is injured. But that was a great signing for Arsenal. If you've been watching Vitinha for PSG, Porto is definitely a place where you want to get players because what's his name? Now you guys know, ever since I had COVID, um my brain just goes poof. Luis Diaz, Vitinha, Fabio Vieira, they have like a gold mine of talent. So I thought he was excellent. High Tech J says Vieira makes Paquetá redundant. Bob says, happy to see you just watching from Malawi. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Christian said, expected more from Lokonga. We will get onto that in a second. Natin says, Jess, what do you think of Nelson's cameo? Thought he didn't play much, but in those 10 minutes, he made 2 or 3 good plays. I was kind of disappointed that we didn't see him from the beginning because, there was a lot of talk and a lot of hype about this is Nelson's time. And, but he's going to have to earn those minutes. And I understand that. And I do think Arteta wanted to make sure that we maintained a certain level of continuity and like professionalism within the team, because you can't have a full like 11 that have never played with each other. And so you have somebody on the back line, which was Gabriel, you had somebody in the midfield, which is xhaka, and then you had somebody in the front line, and that was Gabriel Martinelli. So for me, it was like, okay, I would have rather seen a little bit more of Nelson. But in terms of his cameo, I thought he was very intentional and wanted to make a statement. I thought, even though things didn't necessarily come off per se, like he didn't score a goal or get an assist, you could tell that he wanted to put out positive energy, if that makes sense. He wanted to, like, you could tell that in his mind, he was saying, I want to make sure that I make an impact. I want to make sure that people understand that I want to be here. And that's really important when you're a team on the player on the fringes. You don't want to be somebody that is coming out there and looking like, okay, well, I'm just here and I'm going to get my minutes. I'm going to get that. Nelson, I thought looked good in his cameo. I'd love to see more, but I understand why he didn't start from the beginning, even though I would have loved to see more of him. Ayanle says Vieira is nothing if not an output machine, goals and assists. Once he clicks with his teammates, it's a wrap. I am waiting for the first Fabio Vieira assist to Gabriel Martinelli because their little bromance is the cutest thing I've ever seen. And so, yeah, I'm waiting for that. But 100%, like I thought, he has that end product, and that's what's different than some of the players that we have in our team, even though they're brilliant in their own right. Lynn says, like you, Jess, I saw him against Liverpool and he played really well that night. Yeah, he has played. He before Porto bounced into the Europa League, I think they did play Liverpool and they played Chelsea before as well too. So you got to see Vieira play against high level opponents. Obviously, Porto didn't play particularly well because they're playing against really good teams, but he had glimpses and we're seeing it for us now. I love it. Let's see. Dev M says Nelson is coming off an injury. I think he'll play next week. And Lynn says, Jess, but Nelson moved out of the way in the box, allowing Vieira to get that goal. Yeah, and like I thought that he took a shot, it was fine. He was, I thought, dynamic and direct, and he wanted to take his man on. And what we really lack in the team, I think, not really lack, but I think we do need another player that has one-on-one ability. I don't necessarily see Emil Smith Rowe or Fabio Vieira. They're players that can play on the wings, but they're not necessarily 1v1 merchants. And so Martinelli, we know that he has his own style when it comes to dribbling, and he always takes his man on. Gabriel Jesus is really good one-on-one. And then Saka is quite direct and uses his body well, but we don't really have somebody that has that one-on-one vibe to them, and that could be Nelson. So yeah, like I thought he played really, really well in that cameo. Saksham says Nelson over Marquinhos. He's not ready. So yeah, and I want to touch on the Marquinhos and Sambi thing, but I want to touch on it after I talk about two other players that played really well. So just give me a second on that because I think I do want to have a conversation around Marquinhos too. Um, let's see. Big White Clock says ESR will beat a guy for pace rather than outright trick. This is true. Kevy Kev says, smash the likes for Jess, please. You guys make sure you guys are smashing the likes. There's 100 of you guys in here. That would really, really help me in the channel. Christian says, Tierney also quality yesterday. Competition does him good. Now we can talk about it. So we already talked about Vieira and kind of quickly on Nketiah, who I thought attacking wise were two players that really stood out. Tierney was bomb yesterday. He was so good. He was like back to his best, but then with that little bit of additional coaching and playing a little bit of that Zinchenko role, but in his own way. Tierney is never going to be Zinchenko. Zinchenko is a midfielder playing left back, and that's just and a very good midfielder playing left back. Tierney is a left back. Like he just is that, but I do think there's been a little bit of revisionism and negativity surrounding Tierney. And what I don't like is when people conflate availability with talent and ability. And so his ability is right up there with the best left backs in the league. With Tierney, I've always felt that way when he's at his best, he's as good as pretty much anybody. But his availability is not good. And so then it starts to come to one, and then people are acting like Tierney is some bum, and he's not a bum. I think that Tierney has a lot more to his game than people remember because he's been out for so long. He can pass the ball, he can cross, like we know that that's his thing, but he also can score goals and he has a fucking rocket of a left foot. And I do feel like he's been disrespected. I'm not going to lie. I feel like he's been disrespected, and I'm glad that we're seeing him play to his levels and people can remember what kind of player he was. Kieran Tierney for me is the first player of this project. And he's different than, let's say, like Gabriel, who a lot of people feel like is the first player from this project, and Thomas Partey, because they're not, well, xhaka technically, but Tierney is not an Arteta player. Like, he didn't come from, like, Arteta's recruitment, and so he's somebody that came from before. Saliba also came from before but went out on loan, and Martinelli was a young player. And so I look at Tierney as somebody who, if he were to get somebody in there that can supplement his minutes, he could stay at Arsenal for the rest of his career. And we have somebody that, knows what the club is about, is a leader, plays hard, somebody that you can rely upon in big games, somebody who puts their body on the line, and you need players like that. And he's just been disrespected, and I don't like that, and he just looked amazing yesterday. I mean, he had the rocket for the rebounded Nketiah goal. He was good defensively, he was good in attack, and, yeah, I thought Tierney was right up there, probably the best performer yesterday. Maybe Vieira, I'll give it to Vieira, but obviously goal and assist, but Tierney was amazing, and I thought he was good the last game that he played. Um, and with Tierney, and what's going on with Zinchenko, obviously he's having some injury issues, and Tierney came off early, came off in the 70th minute. I would not be surprised if Tierney started against Liverpool. Um, and I think he probably deserves it because I think his performances as of late would warrant a start, especially in a big game. So yeah, Tierney, he is rising to the occasion of competition, and he's showing the type of personality that Arsenal players now need to have. We've had a culture for so long of these are the starters and these are the backups and there's no competition and it just is what it is. And that's not a winning culture. Players that want to play for Arsenal now have to be willing to fight for their spot. And Tierney didn't sulk, he didn't, agitate, he's not walking around, he's playing harder than he ever played, and Tierney always gives 110%. So for me, Tierney, I love that guy. I love him so much. He's a special player, and I think we're lucky to have him. Let's see what you guys are saying. Two sets free. Thank you so much for your super chat. I really appreciate that. See what you guys are saying. Subdude says we need players of Saka and Martinelli caliber. Arsenal should go back for Pedro Neto. He's out of the World Cup with an ankle injury. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Injury issues. I'm not quite sure that even when he was playing for Wolves that I thought he was particularly good this season. So yeah, we need another player, but I'm not sure it's Pedro Neto for me. A cow says defensively Tierney is better than Zinchenko. That is a fact. Dev M says I would start Tierney against Liverpool. Zinchenko is defensively suspect and Salah could roast him. This is true. Christian Andre says reactionary Arsenal fans love to disrespect their players when they are injured. Sadly, it's happening to ESR right now. Emil Smith Rowe, like, I love him, but obviously his fitness issues are what they are. They keep him from being active in conversations when we're talking about the players in our team. But is he crap? No. I think ESR has special quality that we don't have. Like Vieira, like he has a different skill set than the other players that we have, and he has the versatility that I think is important for a team like Arsenal. So yeah, like I do agree. And I think with me with Emil Smith Rowe is I'm just so frustrated because I want him to be in the team so badly, but equally we just have to be patient. Yeah, and that's really what it is. And also with ESR, like a sidebar is that I do think that there's a section of the fan base that feels like ESR should be playing over Odegaard. And for me, unless you're playing consistently the way Odegaard does consistently for us, we don't need to be talking about people taking other people's positions. So I think ESR is a great player that shouldn't be forgotten, and we shouldn't be acting like he's crap or like we need to sell him or anything like that. But equally, until he maintains some level of form, I really don't want to hear about him taking Odegaard's spot when Odegaard has been one of our best players over the last um, year. So it's the nuance of the conversation, isn't it? Big White Clock says ESR is suffering from growing pains. Basically, the issues as they stand won't last forever. And I don't think they would. iGamer says Arsenal is in a good place. Players should be competing for their positions. Exactly. Let's see. Um, Lynn says, I was a little disappointed that he didn't score last night, but I also think you will see him improve because of the competition he has now with, and KT will want to make a statement. Matt says, I kind of want a back four of Tierney, White, Saliba, and Tommy. And kind of moving into to that territory as well is yeah, I I thought Tierney was excellent, but I also thought Tomiyasu was excellent as well. And it's different than Nketiah and Vieira because they're not really natural starters, so they're trying to break into that team. Tierney and Tommy were our starters last season, and we have 2 players that are playing really good that are already kind of playing in those positions, and I think just like Tierney, people had started forgetting what Tomiyasu can bring to this team, and I thought he was really good yesterday, and I think he was disappointed with his performance, which just I think he has a really good mentality where he wants to be great and he relishes the competition and wants Ben White to make him better, which is amazing. So I thought Tomiyasu was also really good. And so we're seeing that depth start to really manifest, especially in the fullback defensive areas. Midfield, we're probably a player light, and we're also an ESR light, and we probably need one more attacker. But some of these players are really showing their asses right now in a good way, and I'm happy about it. There's 150 of you guys in here. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Denver says, Jess, I think Tomiyasu was our best player last night. Also, Reiss looked good for the 10 minutes he was on. I agree. I think it just depends on what you're looking at. Like, there's not much in it. Tierney, like, I'm biased because the I just I love him so much, but Tomiyasu was excellent. Like, there wasn't much in it. They were both excellent yesterday. Yo-Yo says, "Good, hungry players throughout the squad, first time in a while." I agree. Naman says, "Odegaard has been one of our best players, true, but the goal GNA numbers Vieira is producing, Odegaard's position might be under threat rather quickly." We just have to wait and see. We have to wait and see. I think Odegaard has enough credit in the bank, but equally, he does have to up his game in terms of what he can give to us in end product. So I do agree with you to a certain point, but I think Odegaard being the captain and kind of being a part of, being Arteta's coach on the pitch per se, I think he'll be given more time, you know? So, yeah, if that makes sense. I did think and you guys can let me know what you think. How did you guys feel about seeing a midfield that had Vieira and Odegaard in it? Because Odegaard did come on and, he played in the left, um, center mid position, left 8, replaced Granit Xhaka, who needs a rest. And, excuse me, and Vieira played on the right. Thought it was really techy and quite nice, but you definitely need Thomas Partey behind them because they're not very physical, those 2, but I thought it looked okay. I thought it looked better than the times that Odegaard and ESR played together, but I think Vieira is more of a natural midfielder than ESR, and that might be why that was. Big White Clock says, "Tommy is superb. I can see him replacing Gabriel if he slacks off any further." White, Saliba, Tommy, Tierney are best defenders, I'd say. Gabriel is another one where I feel like he's massively disrespected by the fan base. I get that we're frustrated about his mistakes, but the guy plays every game. He's really good on the ball. Some of the passes that he puts into Gabriel Jesus and into the half space, if that was a midfielder, we'd be saying, "Oh my gosh, look at that pass." And he scores goals. And yeah, he has a bozo moment here and there, but I'm not quite there with replacing Gabriel, I think we need another player there to rotate with him, but we don't need to like replace him, if that makes sense. That's my take. Ayanle says Tierney, Xhaka, and Tommy are all cut from the same cloth. They all fight and adapt to be the first in the first team. I like that. That sounds really good. Yo-Yo says Europa League group stage opposition. In terms of Vieira and Odegaard, you mean? Yeah, you can definitely play that way against lower level opposition, but it's probably a little bit too lightweight for the Prem. Nashville says that midfield can work as long as we have solid inverted fullbacks and Partey. Big White Clock says Xhaka can't keep up this form. It'll be Odegaard and Vieira sooner than we think. I don't know because this is another Xhaka is the guy for Arteta, so I'm not sure that his spot is under threat. Vieira has a tough group in front of him to get the starting position. It's hard, because Odegaard and xhaka are Arteta's guys. Not only that, they're consistent performers. So, and they have good fitness levels as well. So, Vieira, I don't think he's quite ready to take somebody's position just yet, but I do think we'll see him rotate in. And I think if you played him next to Xhaka instead of Odegaard, you get a similar results. It'd be interesting to see if it was Xhaka out and Odegaard and Vieira in the Prem. I'm a little bit afraid of that, but yeah, we'll see. I think that's what we're building towards, though. I think as we get better, we're building towards a future with those players all like playing together. But we do have to be solid in the midfield behind them and in defense, like somebody else already said. Matt says, "We have such nice problems these days." We do. We do. We do. Amira says, "Vieira's more direct and has better goals and assists, but Odegaard takes control of the game more, in my opinion. Would love to see how they'd be together in the Premier League." Odegaard is at a point in his progression now where he demands respect on the ball. So when Partey, when Saka, when Odegaard, when these players are on the ball, naturally the opposition backs off because they know they're not going to get the ball from them. Naturally, that's how it goes most of the time. Some people try to put bodies on Odegaard, but most of the times, like even yesterday, you saw when Odegaard came onto the pitch, immediately he could just receive the ball and turn and do what he wanted to do because those players respected him. Vieira is going to have to work on that respect. He's going to have to receive the ball in tight areas and wiggle out of that pressure so that players eventually decide like he's too press resistant, he's too good, so let's back off. He's not quite there yet. So I do agree with you that Odegaard has more control over the game, where Vieira is kind of better in between the lines and in the box. So let's talk about the players that did not shine, because there were a couple of them, and I was like, what happened there? I guess the first player is, JJ Adams says, Jess, why do you think Marquinhos' performance level dipped? I don't know. I don't know why he won't take on his man. I don't know why he seemed timid. I think that's the word that I want to use for Marquinhos. Um, Yesterday's performance is that he was timid. I thought he got into the box and instead of taking a pop, he kind of got it stuck underneath his feet. He wasn't really as active in the game as I thought he could be. I thought he was passive defensively as well in some instances. Like early on in the game, he was pressing and then he slowly started to back away. And some of the Bodo Glimt players were able to dribble past him, and there wasn't that intensity to get the ball back from him, I thought. And I just thought he kind of faded out of the game, if that makes sense. Like he just didn't have any imprint on it whatsoever. And so it wasn't necessarily a bad performance. I just thought he was non-existent in a way, if that makes sense. And I want to obviously like he's new and 19. And so we are not going to expect um consistency from him so early on. I just want to see him a little bit like more aggressive on the ball and see if he will take on his man. But, he was at the Emirates, full stadium. He might have been overawed a little bit, oddly, like you think being against like Zurich at their place might have been a little bit more difficult, but being in front of the home fans, he might have just been overawed by the whole scenario. It's a full Emirates stadium, first time he's ever done that, and I just thought he let the game get past him, and so he didn't have that same pop that I thought he had against Zurich, and he definitely didn't have the same pop that Nelson had, but again, Nelson is older and has been there and done that. He's not overawed by an Emirates stadium, and so I thought Marquinhos was a little bit timid, and I also think that's why for me, like, another attacker would be good because I don't think he's quite ready to step into Saka's position. Like, we still have not figured out who is gonna step in for Saka when he needs a rest. I don't think it's Marquinhos now, but, we'll have to see. Denver says Marquinhos needs time and maybe they're planning on loaning him. I think restarts for now as a backup. Yeah, and there has been talk about Marquinhos being potentially loaned out, and I don't think that that would be a bad thing for him. I think for young players sometimes the best thing is just getting um, playing time. That's what I think. And so I wouldn't be surprised if he was loaned out in January, but again, he's young and it's not something that I'm particularly upset about or feeling like, oh my gosh, he's not going to be good. Martinelli's trajectory, I think, also has diluted some of the fan base into thinking every single 19-year-old we bring through the ranks is going to be a Martinelli or a Saka. It's just not going to happen. So, yeah, like, I don't think it's anything to worry about. Let's see. Big White Clock says, what do we expect from Sambi and Marquinhos? They both already shown great promise. So, where I um Where I push back on the Sambi thing is just because he's been here longer. This is his second season. Um, he's 22, Marquinhos is 19. And so I wouldn't necessarily say that my expectations of Sambi are similar to my expectations of Marquinhos. Now, Sambi also is playing at the moment a more difficult position. He's playing the type of position where when you make a mistake, it's pretty much like you're dead in the water. And we saw even with Thomas Partey, it took him a while to get adapted to that position. So I'm sure Sambi is having some, issues getting used to that position. And you have to be dynamic and you have to be able to you can't be too safe in that position, but also if you take risks, it could really be detrimental. And so it's a fine balance in that position. And that's why there's not a lot of players that can play it. So he's 22. He's playing in a position that I also think he knows that the club doesn't really see him in that position long term anymore because not only was he kind of ousted out of that position at the end of last season and El Neni played it, but also in this last window, we looked for somebody to play it, and now he's playing it. So it's tough for Sambi, I think. Um, I am wondering about him. I do feel as though his progression is not as it's not even his progression, you guys. Like I really think with Sambi for me, it's the lack of intensity off the ball. And it's two things. It's in normal gameplay, I don't see a intention to be intense and get the ball back, to get back into his spot. I don't see that defensive positioning. And whether you're playing in Thomas Partey's position or Xhaka's position, defensive positioning is important. And so it's not just in that deepest position. He needs to have that to play in the midfield full stop. And I just find him to be frustrating because I don't see urgency in his game. And it's annoying. Like I'm not gonna lie, it is annoying to watch him kind of knees up, prancing. I just don't think that that's what we need in our midfield at the moment. And second, where we kind of spoke about Nelson's intention with 10 minutes. He had 10 minutes to show what he had, and you could tell that he was desperate a um to make a difference. He was desperate for it. It didn't always come off, but he was desperate for it. Tierney, this is somebody that was an established starter, has recently lost his position to a really, really good player in Zinchenko, showed his intention. Tomiyasu, starter, lost his position to Ben White, intention. Where's the intention from Sambi to make a statement? I don't think I've seen Sambi make a statement yet. I don't think that I've seen him play where I thought that his guts were busted at like the end of the game. I don't think I've seen it yet. And so I wonder if there's a sense of complacency there. And what's kind of coming back to me is his like statement in the documentary about, well, I'm not starting, so I'm not happy. And it's like, yeah, but I don't want to see that you're not happy. And I am totally projecting here. He may be happy as a clam, but I don't see somebody at the moment that looks like every single minute I get, I'm going to show you how badly I want it. And so he's not really changing Arsenal fans' minds, really. And maybe that's not his intention. Maybe he doesn't give a shit about what we think. But I'm not seeing that from Sambi. And I want to see that because the more those rumors keep coming out about him potentially going out alone, the more I think that that's probably the best thing for him. is long term, I'm looking at the way that the team is filling out, and I'm like, okay, Emil Smith Rowe is somebody that they really back. Like Emil Smith Rowe's not going anywhere, not now. They are being very patient with him, and Emil Smith Rowe is somebody that I do think that would play well in that left position, in that left center mid position as he grows into it. Vieira, we know, can play both 8 positions as well. He can play number 10. He can play so many different positions. If Sambi's not going to play in the 6, is he actually going to be an 8 for us? I'm not sure because he doesn't score goals, and I'm not sure that I see that in the way that we're playing now. So I just wonder about Sambi. I really do. And 20 million for him is not cheap. And so, yeah, those are just my thoughts. I'm just kind of like spitballing here and just kind of like telling you guys how I feel about Sambi at the moment. It doesn't mean that I don't think he's talented because I do. I think he has all the great passing and he's very good on the ball, but I just wonder about him. I really do. And I don't expect him to be the finished article, but what I do expect is for you to be busting a gut. You're not a starter. You were upset that you weren't starting, but you're not busting a gut like Eddie Nketiah is. You're not killing yourself like Tierney is. Those are established players, really, and you're not established, so why are you not running? Um, those are my thoughts. Yo-Yo says, having a nonchalant or languid playing style always opens you up to criticism. Fans love players who chase lost causes and slide tackles. Well, here's the thing is like you have to earn the right to have that languid, nonchalant style. And when you go back to the players that we kind of accepted those styles from, one of them was Mesut Ozil, and he was a world-class midfielder that had credit in the bank and trophies to boot. Sambi ain't got no nothing. He doesn't have anything. Neither did Ainsley Maitland-Niles. And so it's not that I'm saying you have to chase lost causes all the time, but what I am saying is that when you lose the ball or when we're in defensive transition, you might want to run fast because you are the number 6. And so this is a very different conversation from I want you to be running and chasing lost causes versus I just want you to be intense on defensive transitions. I just want to see you look like you're doing the job that you're supposed to be doing. And so, yeah, it's not as noticeable when you play against lower level opposition, but it's really fucking noticeable when you're playing against Manchester United. So it's not about chasing lost causes for me. Zich says Sambi did not have a bad game, but it was more of a safe game. It was more El Neni than it is Partey. For again, you guys, for me, and like I just want to make this clear. It's not about what he did on the ball, it's what he was off the ball, you know, and especially in the second half when and for me, this is the reason why I thought Arteta brought on Jesus and brought on Odegaard and Saka was because I do think that there was a level of nonchalant and just, oh, it's too easy for the players that were playing on the pitch at the moment. And Bodo Glimt was starting to get some chances that they probably shouldn't have had. And I think a lot of that came from the lack of intensity and defensive transition intensity, whatever you want to call it, from Sambi and Vieira, and Sambi is the 6 and Vieira is not. So it's one of those, and it's not like this is the first time we're having these conversations about Sambi. A lot of people have felt like this from the moment we saw him. Good on the ball, but defensive positioning needs work and intensity off the ball needs help. Especially for somebody that is upset that they're not playing. Yo-Yo says, I just think it's a personality thing. I don't think he has the personality type to play Partey's role. Mateo would have fit better. Saksham says, El Neni is way better defensively, to be honest. His passing is mid, but defensive performance are good. Tope says, even Harvey Elliott with his small frame still presses hard with intensity. Sambi needs to step up. DMC Harper says, yesterday, though, he had less possession. The game was well managed. Yeah. For me, the game at a certain point was not being managed as well as it was in the beginning. But again, like, it's not really about what he was doing on the ball. Like, it really was about when there were so many moments, not so many, but I would say there were 3 or 4 moments in the second half where Bodo Glimt literally went from their back line, passed out of the back, and dribbled straight through the gut of our midfield. Where was Sambi? And That was kind of what happened against Manchester United. He came out of his position and pressed high with no intensity. He did not have a professional foul, did not get the ball, and they were through on goal. That's what I'm saying. Like, this is not like a new thing, and it's not to kill Sambi. I'm just wondering. I'm just wondering, what is he going to be, and why is it that somebody who's not happy about not playing, not switched on in their position and doing the same things that they were doing last season. Saksham says he's not switched on defensively and doesn't even sprints at full. I've never seen him sprint. I've never seen him run fast. I'll say that. I've never seen him run and bust a gut, you know? Ayul says Sambi doesn't have positional awareness and can't sniff out danger. Blaze says, Jess, Sambi needs to improve when he is off the ball, but he is good on the ball. I agree. Ayanle says, Partey replacement is a must this January, and after see Marquinhos, so is Saka replacement, and I don't want to hear about that bum Neto. Saka will be overworked. We forgot the World Cup. He will play every game. So, yeah, it's just one of those things where I just maybe want to see a little bit more from Sambi, and I don't think that he was catastrophic or terrible. I'm just seeing similar, things each game that I'm wondering if he's gonna do something different, or not. And maybe this is what Arteta's asking him to do, but I don't think so. You know, so there's 176 of you guys in here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. We need to get a move on. We spoke about Bodo Glimt too long, but won the game, top of the group. We move on. We move forward. Let's see what it's giving when we go to their place. And obviously, we have to play PSV as well. Now, Liverpool. What are your guys' expectations of this game? Get it out there. Do you guys expect the 3 points? Do you guys feel like it's going to be more difficult than what it seems like because of their form? What are you guys thinking? Because I think every game is a massive game for Arsenal. It just is. When you're a top 6 team, you're expected like to lose no games, right? And but with Liverpool, I have such a deep, like, I think this is the one fixture that we play. This is even worse than Manchester City, where I just feel like there is such a mental block there. Even when we have opportunities, we can't take them. And they get 1 goal, they get 2, 3, and 4, and 5. And it's just like, boom, it's done. And they turn up for us. Like, I don't see them turn up like this for anybody else. It's just something with them. And, they're not in great form right now. A Offensively, they're pretty much the same team. They don't have Mane, so it's a little bit different, but their attacking metrics are good. They're good. Defensively is where they're not as good as they were before, and they have some players that are aging, especially in midfield, that are exposing their back line. They're exposing their back line. And that's where I think the difference has really come in over this last, like, 6 months or so, is where they pretty much were defensively impenetrable for us last season. We played them after they had their little glitch. They had a glitch at the beginning of last season as well, but they sharpened up, and by the time we got to them at home, it was we were just unable to do anything, against them. This season, of course, they played Rangers, and I do think that they feel a lot more confident about I don't know about the players, but the fans seem more comfortable now after Rangers and after playing kind of like a modified formation for them now than they did before after they played Brighton. But I still feel like there are defensive frailties there that haven't been there in the past that we should be able to take advantage of because they haven't played us with a proper striker in years. They haven't played us with a proper striker for years. And so I think having somebody like Gabriel Jesus, them having a little bit of inconsistency and frailty at the back, I think this has the makings of a really, really good game because both teams kind of have the ability to we can both give up goals, but we can both score them. And so it's just going to be, who scores more, I think. I think that's kind of how the game is going to go. But there's so many interesting matchups. Trent versus Martinelli, Thomas Partey, xhaka, Odegaard versus their midfield. I'm sure they'll have their best possible midfield against us. Salah versus our left back. I think Okay, let's get this clown out of here. I don't know why he's even talking about Egal, you're a loser. Anyways, so I think even like our left back versus Salah is going to be so important. And I think it should be Tierney. I said that earlier. I think it should be Tierney. Um, so there's just so many Luis Diaz against Ben White, so there's so many interesting little battles all across the pitch. But Liverpool are different than Spurs, excuse me, and Man United. They want the ball, not necessarily a counter-attacking team. So it's going to be interesting to see like who has possession, who doesn't, who like influences the game most, who tries to im like im how do I say it? Who tries to be the dominant team in this game? Will they sit back a little bit more and try to hit us on the counter? Will we sit back? Because I think the best probably example of what this game could be like is when we played against Manchester City at home last season. And they weren't at their sparkling best, but they were still good. And they had a lot of possession. But when we got possession, we attacked through the middle of the pitch and out wide quick enough where then we could get into their attacking into the opposition half. And so we had about 30% possession and they had 60, but we probably were the better team until, we got the red card. So I think that that's kind of how the game might go, is that Liverpool may try to dominate possession and we may be like, okay, let you have a little bit of it. But when we get the ball, we'll be quick to kind of move through the gears and be on the counter. Kind of like how we did against Manchester United as well with the goal that we scored that was called back. And so it's going to be very interesting. I think Liverpool are still an amazing team and they're going to hurt you. They can hurt you. Attacking wise, they have not really lost as much as people are making it out to seem. But defensively, who knows what it's going to be like. So let me know what you guys are thinking. I don't know who this person is, but they just like are the biggest loser I've ever seen in my whole life. And you can't forget Jota, who scores against us more than anybody else. I'm sure he will play. So, yeah, we have to see. Yo-Yo says, "Who scores more? That's how it works." Just I know, but you guys know what I mean. You guys know what I mean. It's not going to really be about containing and sitting back. It's going to be more of a high scoring game because I think both teams can give up quite a few goals. Ayanle says Liverpool always go out for Arsenal, City, and United. Make no mistake, they'll be hoping to turn their season around from this game, especially because they have Man City next. So they can't lose to us. They can't draw Brighton, lose to us, and then lose to City. So, yeah, they're gonna want to do as much as they can against us. And don't get it twisted. Klopp doing all this like, oh, being all nice to us and all this kind of stuff. He hates us. And so yeah, they're gonna be playing this probably be their best performance of the season. I wouldn't be surprised. iGamer says our defense and attack has improved tremendously since the last time we played. I'm not worried. Well, I just don't think this season we've played a team with this level of threat before. Manchester United, of course they scored 3 goals and they're threatening. They have good attacking players, but Liverpool are just different. They know how to go through the gears and get into your opposition half and pin you back and put you under waves and waves and waves of pressure. The only difference now is that because their midfield is not really as solidified as it used to be and they're kind of older and struggling a little bit, you can get at them and pass through them and get to their back line quicker. So, yeah, I think I am not worried per se, but I am cautious about the idea that because they've been in bad form, that all of a sudden we're just going to wipe the floor with them. Nashville Gooner says Zinchenko isn't training right now. It's likely to be Tierney. Yeah, Zinchenko has some injury issues, but at least we have Tierney. As long as he doesn't get hurt from now until time, then I'm more than happy to see Tierney play against Liverpool. Lynn says if Klopp is not getting what he wants, he will be going off on one of the sidelines, and we don't want to see Arteta getting involved because it didn't help last season. The only thing that I will say is that more of that was it was at Anfield, and so it really ignited their crowd. It was weirdly quiet there than it usually is, I guess. And we'll be at our place, so any like jostling on the sideline it'll go in our favor because our fans will get up for us. And so I think it'll be a little bit different, but I get what you're saying. I 100% get what you're saying. Let's see. Ayonle says Ben White versus Diaz Jota is the most important matchup. Um, Fair enough. I do think Ben White has done really well against some really difficult opponents this season so far. So, and also Saliba is on that side. I do think the most important side is going to be our left stroke their right, because that's where we attack from mostly. Like, I think our attacks mostly flow down the left. That's where we do a lot of our rotation. That's the side that xhaka's on. That's the side that Martinelli is on. And that's where we tend to attack a little bit more. And that's also the side that we tend to give up goals from as well, because that's the side with Gabriel and Zinchenko, and it's a little bit weaker on that side than it is on the other side, obviously. And then they obviously want to use Salah and Trent to do a lot of their rotations and to get into the attack and create chances for the players on their left, but they're spacing behind Trent. So it's all going to be about that side and who can manage that side better. And I think that's why Tierney is probably the better option for tomorrow. I don't know who this guy is, you guys. I'm blocking him as many times, but let's just say like he's a loser. Sorry. Cliff says Liverpool will be a score draw. Anyone who thinks that Liverpool will not be up for this is mad. We have to respect them. We have to respect them, but not fear them. And I think over the years we have feared them quite a bit, and we kind of just gave up before the game even really started. And the reason why I say that is because even when we were trying to play okay, like when we played at home last season, I thought we were good, we were connecting well. We didn't quite have the right quality in certain areas. So essentially having Gabriel Jesus instead of Lacazette is going to help a lot. But there was one moment, and this is the thing, is sometimes when you play against the good teams, you only have a couple of chances. That's just how it goes. Um, right after halftime, Thiago gave us the ball and Odegaard and Lacazette fumbled over it. And I feel like that's the moment that you have to take. But because you're scared and you're not really in your right state of mind, you would have put that away against, I don't know, Bournemouth. But against Liverpool, you panic. And so I think that's where Gabriel Jesus being calm and been there, done that before is going to come into play. And our players have to not be so scared that they shit themselves, in high leverage scenarios, because you have to get the goals when you have the chances, and we will get chances, but it won't be as many as, what we're getting on a normal basis against teams that are lower down the table. Ayonle says, I agree with you, Jess. Tierney is 100% important. iGamer says, Jesus ain't gonna panic. Exactly. I just felt like even Lacazette, like at home, the year prior, in on goal against Allison, does not score. And I'm like, if you score that goal and we go 2-1 up, then you don't lose 3-1 potentially, but we never score when we're supposed to. That's going to be the difference. Blaze says nobody disrespect Liverpool, but they should respect us. This is not the same Arsenal. Now we have Gabriel Jesus as striker, not Lacazette. That's going to be a huge difference, I think. Let's see. Reese Hoob says, just relax. Trent will destroy your Martinelli and it will prove you haters wrong on Sunday that talk shit about him. The thing is that like you guys are so deluded as a fan base in general. Like nobody hates Trent really. Like I think he's still the best right back in the league, even though he's in poor form. But you have to keep it 100. He's, not a great defender. He never has been. And he's just being exposed, and I don't know why you guys can't accept it as a fan base that he's not a great defender, and there's nothing wrong with saying it. He's being exposed, and people are going to talk about it, especially because you guys consider him to be the best right back in history. When you put that on his head, his mistakes are magnified. And so either calm down on saying that he's the best thing since sliced bread, or just accept that when you have good players, they carry the most scrutiny when they're fucking up. And so I don't know why as a fan base you guys just can't accept that. I don't get it. Like, it's just not that deep. It's really not. Denver says, Jess, we have Saliba, Zinni, and Jesus. We ain't the same. Honestly, mentality has been on point, even at old toilet. Oh yeah, I get what you're saying. So yeah. But you guys, I have like 5 minutes left. Predictions, who's gonna score, all that kind of stuff. Let me know quickly. I know this was quick, but we just had to get it done. And then if you guys want to talk more, you guys can obviously jump over to the football terrace after this, because I'll be on that show. But let me know now what your guys' score predictions are. Paul says Arsenal will be clinical this time. No lock a threat up front. 2-1 win for the Arsenal. Nashville says 4 F-bombs from just today. It must be a big game coming up. You guys know me. I love an F-bomb. Denver says 2-1 Arsenal. Big White Clock says 1-0 xhaka. Leaf says 2-1 Arsenal, Martinelli and Jesus. Obina says 3-1 to who? Don't know. Seawalder says 3-2 to us. Leopold says 1-0 to the Arsenal. Kevy says Arsenal will win 4-1. Partey scores again. Amira says 3-1 to the Arsenal. Martinelli, Saliba, and Jesus to score. He hasn't lost a game he scored in. Still don't think we keep a clean sheet. I don't either. Ringy says 3-1 to the Arsenal. James Bond says 3-1 to the Arsenal. 2-1 to the Arsenal. You guys are really confident. So I'm actually going to go with the 2-2 draw. I think we're going to draw the game. That's what I feel deep in my heart. Like, I feel like it's going to be a draw. I feel like it's going to be a fight. I think obviously we're going to play well, but they're also going to play well, and it's just going to be a draw. I'm feeling a draw. I'm feeling a 2-2 draw, but I still think we'll play well and we'll feel okay about it, because that would, I think at the end of the day, like, we're not going to win every single game, but as long as we play well and we get something, we leave there with something, we'll be fine. Sorry, guys. Sorry to hate us. Sorry to ruin the fun, but I think it's going to be a 2-2 draw. Now, I have to get out of here. Make sure you guys smash the likes. And then if you guys want to talk more about the games coming up in the Premier League this weekend, go to the Football Terrace now. I will be there in just a second. Bye, guys.